And now, it's that time of the week once again. Welcome to the Departure Lounge podcast with your hosts, Tom Whittle and Steve Woldridge. Your ticket to the home of aviation podcasts. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode number 57 of the Departure Lounge podcast on the Departure Lounge YouTube channel. We're also on Visions Aviation on Facebook, so good evening to anybody watching on there, and we're also on their YouTube channel as well. So good evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hope you're having a wonderful Easter Sunday. My name for the evening is Tom Whittle. For the evening, it's not for the evening, so of course it's forever. But joining me this evening, he's actually disappeared, but I'm going to assume he's coming back. However, we'll bring in one contributor to the show when it comes up. There we go. Ian Hartley. Ian, a very good evening to you. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks, Tom. How are you? This Easter Sunday, a new dawn, a new era.
Yes.
Do it on a Sunday again.
Sorry, I was reading a message from Steve. So obviously Steve's had another issue with his PC. So but that's absolutely fine. Are you having a good Easter Sunday?
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I've not really done much, to be fair. I've been out in garden most of the day cutting my edges and cutting grass and doing bits of this and bits of that, and that's pretty much it, to be quite honest. It's been quite a nice day. So yeah, just been pottering.
Yeah, it's been all right. Went to a boot sale, managed to mug off some person for about 100 quid's worth of stuff for a very, very, very low price. So
happy days, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
It's what you do at boot sales.
Yeah, I've not been to a boot. I mean, they've only just really started again, haven't they? After what's been happening and what have you. So yeah, it'd be good to get back. I've not been to one for ages, so it'd be nice to get back to them.
Yeah, boot sales are good fun. I'm just going to turn the volume up. Yeah. Just while I do that, there we go. I'd have thought Steve would be joining us at some point, which I imagine he will.
Yeah, it's just messaged me saying his computer's turned itself off.
No, I have told him not to insult anybody, but obviously, there you go. Anyway, let's go into the show, and Steve comes in. We'll bring him back, and we'll go on to it. So let's go into a little bit of housekeeping before we do. So we're on social media, as we know, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. You can find all the links to those in the description below. Also, we're going to point this out as well on behalf of Ken and the guys at Vision International. You can see down below, literally just here, is a little message to say that the A380 data file is now available. So we encourage you to buy the book. It's very good from what I've seen. A lot of people have been posting it on Twitter and things like that, and it looks fantastic. So well worth buying. The link to that is also in the description below. Ken and Charles Kennedy have also, they put a lot of work into that book. So
they haven't they? Just I've seen pictures of it myself, and it looks absolutely fantastic. It really looks
fantastic. So do consider buying that and showing some support to obviously Ken and the crew at Visions International. Of course, lastly, if you wish to be a guest on the show, you can drop us a message on the social medias. And we'll get you onto the show as soon as possible. We've got a very hectic schedule coming up, but we'll do our best to fit you in. Now, I can see him in the green room, as we call it, but the co-host has arrived. Steve is here, having computer problems again.
No, it's not Wi-Fi this time. It decided to turn off as the countdown was coming on, which was very convenient of it.
didn't
Yeah.
like it, obviously. But no. So good evening to you. Happy Easter to you. How are you?
Yeah, no, I was quite relaxed up until 30 seconds ago when the old computer turned off. But yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I hope everyone at home's had a good Easter so far. Ian, hope you're all right up there, mate. And it's been
all good
been
up
a
here,
nice few
Steve,
days
yeah.
off.
Excellent.
And obviously everyone at home watching as well. Hope you're all doing well.
Fantastic. So we'll get into some hellos whilst we sort of get everything sorted, and say hello to the lovely people that have joined us this evening. So we have got, just going to read these out very quickly, Ian, if that's all right. Donna O'Brien says hey, so hello to you. Gail Leary says hello, so hi everyone, she says. Jack Rolls likes the new intro song. Thank you very much. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm not getting copyrighted for that. That's the plan anyway. But yeah, quite like it. Thought I'd change things up a little bit. Rob Brown Plainspotting says, "Evening troops. Hope all is well with everybody. Yeah, everything is fine apart from
All
Steve's
good up here.
computer." Ian's getting a special shout out, I think, from the guys at Vision International saying good evening, Ian. Not us,
Hey.
just good evening, Ian.
Well,
so there you go.
cheers, lads. Good evening to
Special treatment.
you. Absolutely.
Special treatment. Shay Pell is in the house. He says, hey, all. So hello to you.
How are you, Shay?
Jim Gemmell with the first comment about our topic for this evening, saying he remembers flying Laker out of Prestwick. Transatlantic Alison, who is, of course, back in the air, which is always great to see. She joins us this evening, says, evening, guys.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. How you doing? All right?
Yeah, how you doing, Alison?
Let's just go through. Ken Carr is here.
Yeah.
He says, hi, everyone.
Evening, Ken. All right?
Lots of lots of people getting their hellos, and of course, Village International now clarifying that they're getting special treatment to the minions, which are you two. So yes, wonderful stuff. Right, and of course, special question is, what are the beverages tonight? I don't actually have any, so that rules me out. But Ian, what is your beverage for this evening?
I'm actually I'm indulging tonight and having a few cans of Carlsberg while the show's on tonight, which I don't normally do. It's normally herbal tea or water, but I'm...
Jesus, you feeling all right? You're not like,
Well, it's funny because I was in a supermarket on Friday and I managed to get 30 cans of Carlsberg Export for 20 quid. So how can you not turn? Even if you didn't drink, you'd have to buy it, wouldn't you?
No, it's not bad at all, is it? Really,
it was cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got this Brothers Strawberry line as sponsored by my brother. So thank you very much for that, mate.
Wonderful, excellent. So there you go, and you can hear it cracking open.
Yeah, you hear it cracking open then.
Fantastic, lovely. Right, let's get into tonight's topic of conversation, which, if you didn't know, judging by the title of the podcast, we are talking about the legend of Laker Airways. I expect the younger audience tonight not to really know Laker, which is why we're giving the educational side of it. But just for starters, I know, Steve, you've got quite a bit of info on them. Tell us exactly who Laker were, just very briefly.
Oh yeah, well, reading up on him, he's an extraordinary man, and you can date back his love of aviation back as far as 1930, when there was a kind of a primitive aerobatics team called the Flying Circus, and he managed to get himself up in the air and do some flights of those. So obviously that's where his love of aviation came from. And then, unfortunately, as we know, the war came along, and he applied to be in the RAF, and he couldn't get in because he had perforated eardrums. But he actually managed to get a job for the artillery, delivering aircraft sort of around the places, and that's where he got his sort of basic knowledge of sort of operating systems in the aviation industry as far back as sort of the wartime there. So it dates back to when he was a really young man. So pretty much been in his blood all his life, to be honest.
It's quite an interesting history, I think, from what we were researching and stuff. We've mentioned briefly Laker Airways before on the show. Way back, I think we mentioned it in terms of airlines that were no longer with us, I think. And looking up the history and everything that he sort of pioneered, Freddie Laker, was astonishing. And that's why I think a lot of people, as I said last week when we were telling everyone watching what the topic was, is we said that many people believe that like without Laker Airways, like low-cost carriers would probably still be lagging behind in terms of being introduced as early as they have been. Like without Laker, probably wouldn't be anything sort of along the lines of like your Ryanairs and your EasyJets sort of nowadays. But what we're going to very quickly do, and I'll just quickly point this out. So I'm going to just do two things. So firstly, if you're new to the YouTube channel, do subscribe to the channel. It helps us out massively. If you enjoy it, like it on YouTube and Facebook, share it around with everybody, and also feel free to leave a comment as well. There you go, Steve. That's your job for the evening. To help us out, not just us, you'll be helping Visions International out as well. Anyway, let's go down through some nostalgic moments for a lot of people with some Laker Airways adverts.
I'm Freddie Laker. I own Laker Airways, and I'm dedicated to low-cost air travel. In 1976, over 1 million passengers flew Laker, so if you're planning a visit across the Atlantic, believe me, we know what we're talking about. With Laker, you can fly round trip to the USA or Canada in one of our wide-body DC-10s for less than half the price of a normal economy ticket. And you don't have to join a club. Just book well in advance and plan to stay for at least 2 weeks. But don't call me. See your travel agent for full details. Look, I've got to give you a better deal. I've got my name on every plane.
Nice little trip down memory lane, that I think, for everybody. So for those that don't, I mean, obviously for me, I wasn't born around the time of Laker Airways. If I see that for the first time, I think the guy is sort of like, I don't know how you sort of put it, but he made me feel very comfortable about wanting to book a flight with them. Does that make you feel the same way? Like when Freddie Laker's like talking about it, like do you see like, oh, actually, he knows what he's doing, and like you feel quite comfortable knowing if you were to book a flight with Laker?
Yeah, there was a guy in Bournemouth called Bath Travel. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, and he had a single 737, and it would fly to like Palma on a Monday, and then you were there for a week, and then it would pick you up when like a week later when it flew out again, and then every day it went somewhere different. But the chairman of the company actually used to see every single flight off and welcome every single flight back. And you sort of get the impression with Laker, he didn't, but he was that sort of passionate about his industry. And when you watch the research, everyone within his company, he knew their name and he knew their family's name, and he took pride in the fact that everyone was really inclusive within his company. And it was, a real kind of a family ethos that he had going on with them.
Absolutely.
I think obviously we're really passionate about his brand, weren't he, about his aircraft and what have you. For him to have his name plastered all over him, you've got to be, haven't you, to be quite honest. And what Steve was just saying then about the entire business, the company was a family. I was watching a documentary about him yesterday, and he was saying that in his head office, it was over 5 floors, and he was at the top floor, but they didn't have a lift in the office, in the actual building. So what he had to do, obviously, he had to climb every flight of stairs, but on different floors, they had different parts of the airline and what have you. And if there was a problem, the sort of team leader from that particular floor would stand and wait for his car to come into the car park, knowing full well that Freddie Laker had to pass each of these floors to get to his office. And the people would stand outside the office and wait for him to come up. And then he would tell Freddie Laker about the problems. And then Freddie Laker would take him into the office, and they would sort all the problems out. So the problems were actually sorted out by the actual head of the business rather than, I don't know, somebody employed by the business, you know. And I think that's testament to the passion what he had for his actual brand, for his own airline.
I think in terms of like adverts for his airlines, because I've seen the word airline in the chat. for adverts for his airline and stuff, you don't see a lot of owners making the adverts. Like, you got your Richard Branson doing the adverts, I think in the 90s and things like that. Then you had Freddie Laker doing it before in the 80s and early 70s and things like that. Nowadays, you don't really get that. So is that something that's possibly missing from, unless I'm missing an airline that actually has their owner do it? But are we missing that sort of, let's say, like reassurance sort of thing, like nowadays, compared to like the early 70s and 80s and stuff, where the owners of the airline are actually telling you, come fly with us, it's absolutely fine. We offer this, we offer that sort of thing.
I suppose in this day and age, the owners are almost faceless, aren't they? It's major shareholders and big corporate banks and all that who sort of run these airlines, technically speaking. So yeah, it's a different era. Like he was the face of the company and he was proud of it. But these days, there's so many different factions, aren't there? That very few companies are probably legitimately owned by a single individual. Obviously, you got your chief executives and what have you. But when it comes to the actual ownership, there's not anyone like Laker really these days to Richard Branson, obviously, but. Yeah, it's a bygone era, I think. So it's probably why it doesn't happen these days.
I was going to mention Richard Branson. He's probably the only guy in the airline sector now, I'm thinking off the top of my head, who is actually still. You say Virgin Airlines, and you think of Richard Branson. Where you can't say the same about BA, or Lufthansa, or any of these big airlines. I think when we did the show a long time ago, Tom, you'll remember this, when we did Southwest Airlines for America.
Correct. Yeah.
I think they still have a face of the business, haven't they? They've still got like because he hosts the award ceremony, doesn't he? Where they all got the awards and things like that. If I remember rightly, but I would definitely say Richard Branson's pretty much the only one left. And he actually based himself off Freddie Laker anyway, because Freddie Laker was his mentor, weren't he?
Absolutely, yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. Yeah, it's crazy to see. And as I'm about to show, we've got one more advert, which I know when I showed both Steve and Ian, we all had a good sort of little jiggle to, because it was quite catchy. So if you know the words at home, do sing along. But here's another trip down nostalgic road with another advert from Laker Airways.
Welcome to Laker.
Consider yourself at home.
Consider yourself one of the family.
Consider yourself our mate. We don't mean to make no fuss, but after some consideration we can stay. Consider yourself one of us.
I'm Freddie Laker, and flying with me is fun, and the fun begins with my low prices.
Oh, there you go. Some very catchy adverts for nostalgic reasons. But I suppose making them fun and stuff also draws in the audience and everyone else as well. And I think a lot of people, I'm looking at the chat as well, are sort of riling off their memories of Laker as well. So keep bringing them, keep giving us the memories and stuff. We'll post them up throughout the evening onto the screen, and we'll read them out as we go. Just very quickly, Speedbird TV are in the house, so a very good evening to fantastic. You.
Yeah, evening.
Fantastic few streams from London City and Heathrow last few days. So
I love London City.
The streams are very good. Very good.
I love them streams at London City.
Visions International says that the show should be renamed A Night on the Lash because you guys are drinking and I'm not. Ordinarily, I probably would be, but I'm not feeling it tonight. Transatlantic Allison says between Laker and Kelleher at Southwest, it would be totally different. And then lots of people just riling off their memories, which we'll quickly go through before we go into a little bit more detail about Laker Airways and Freddie Laker himself. So Jason Peacock over on Facebook says first ever flight was on the Laker DC-10 from Gatwick to Toronto in 1978.
Oh wow, that must have been something.
It's weird for me. Like I don't know. It's just like the years and stuff, and that obviously not being around at the time and things like that. Shay Pell on Facebook says first time I ever seen that airliner, and it sounded like he was calm and confident airline to fly, made it sound like the airline was stable and enough to get a good bargain. I think that's kind of the drill that they were throwing out there, was like, literally, we're all about fun, and it's fun to fly with us, sort of thing. Paul Hussey on Facebook: remember getting on a 1-hour demo flight when their first DC-10 came to Manchester, early 70s. Met Freddie Laker when he came around the cabin introducing himself.
Yeah, fantastic.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, fantastic.
I actually like looking when you were showing the adverts back just then, or looking at the actual the actual seats themselves in the actual aircraft and the upholstery and things like that. But the like proper 1970s big comfy chairs you can just lounge in, aren't they?
Yeah.
Compared to what they are these days.
Proper old school. Yeah, it's proper, crazy.
Yeah. Little ashtrays on end of arm and things like that.
When smoking was allowed on planes, which I still think is bizarre even now. But Jack Rolls says, you don't see adverts like that no more. That's nostalgia.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I wonder if you saw an APU in one of those videos. Visions International saying, I remember Laker starting. It was seen as revolutionary, which it kind of was. And we'll jump onto that very, very soon as well. Lots of people getting their chats in there, which is great to go through. Jason Peacock again on Facebook saying, as a kid, I spent time at their Gatwick base. His mum worked at the Gatwick passenger service team for Laker.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, brilliant.
Yes. Rob Brown, plane spotting. A mate's dad worked with Rolls-Royce and said Laker engines were always good to work on. They used a reduced thrust technique on takeoff, therefore reduced wear and, more importantly, costs, which is, I think, also one of the first. I think Freddie Laker was one of the first people to pioneer that.
Oh, yeah. It's still current to this day, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
He used to have his pilots, didn't he? Radio in the plane in front, didn't he? To get the conditions and things like that, so they could get to their altitudes a lot quicker. Didn't it?
Yeah.
It was proper. It must have been. I mean, as much as you say about him, it must have been bloody tight. Honestly, I bet you couldn't get a penny out of him.
Yeah.
Well, proper penny pincher, weren't it?
They even used to wax the outside of the planes to make them more aerodynamic, to increase the fuel capacity, and that's sort of the lengths they went to.
Mental, isn't it?
Really, really is, yeah.
Chaz __ 1960 on YouTube says, good evening. I had a friend who worked in operations at Laker Airways in the early 70s. He flew on the DC-10 in 1974 and even got on the flight deck.
Oh, yeah, some amazing memories in the chat tonight. No, that's
really good stuff. Yeah, really, really good stuff. Let's have a look. Here we go, Jason Peacock again. Massive bits of info from Jason this evening. Next week, there is the Freddy's Awards in New Orleans, or American people will shoot me down for saying that wrong, but that's how I'm saying it. Named the Freddy and celebrates the top loyalty programs, etc.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, very... You can kind of get an idea then for just how much of an impact he had on the aviation industry. Which is pretty cool. And of course, first time that we've seen them is Aviation in Action, who are here saying, good evening, guys. Good evening, old Laker. So, very good evening to you guys. Thank you for joining us. Anyway, let's have a look. We'll just answer this question here. Stephen Brown saying, who here is missing Joe Lingus? Joe is no longer part of the show. But that is for an entirely different topic. We're just going to address that now because there are quite a few comments from him asking where he is. So that answers that question. Right, moving on. So, Laker Airways, as it was pointed out, their base was in Gatwick Airport, and flew quite an extensive fleet over the years in terms of, just rattling off the top of my head, BAC 111s, 707s, DC-10s, even moving into the A300s just before they went bankrupt. Steve, tell us a little bit about their sort of route network and sort of where they flew to.
Yeah, obviously, sort of quite famously, they muscled in on the transatlantic routes, but they also did quite a pioneering trip down to, I want to say Mallorca, somewhere like that, where they did a weekend where it was a flight and your hotel for $9.99, which Obviously, inflation has been changed a little bit since then, but even so, that's stealing your hand off. So yeah, you get 2 nights and return flights for £10, and that's obviously why people went absolutely balmy for it back in the day, and that.
Yeah, we talk about it, don't we? We talk about it in terms of the revolutionary side of things, as Visions mentioned, in terms of, like, say, it was probably unheard of at the time to do flights and a hotel to a very popular destination, and maybe that's why, because it was a very popular destination to go to, and they thought they'll trial it and things like that. Was it successful?
Well, I think it was successful in as much that it got the backup of sort of Pan Am and BEA at the time. Just to confirm, it was Palmer he was offering these £10 flights for.
Mm.
But yeah, just incredible. And you think his reign in aviation wasn't all that long as such. He wasn't around as an operator for that long, but he did enough to create some waves in the times he was there, that's for sure.
He totally wanted to flip the whole thing upside down, didn't he? Basically, and just rewrite the manual of how to do aviation. And it's like I say, reading up on some of the stuff that he basically brought into the industry, which, if you look now, a lot of airlines are using it. Just again, like I said, it shows the impact that he had on the aviation industry by doing all these things, getting the backs up of other airlines going, well, what's he doing, sort of thing, and then seeing, oh, actually, that's quite a good idea, and then implementing it themselves, which, credit to him. I mean, nowadays you don't really see any airlines bringing in revolutionary ideas, and then other airlines going, oh yeah, we'll have that, sort of thing.
I think back then, going back to the documentary I was watching the other day, and he was saying that particularly the airlines, what went on to sort of do him over, they were all members of IATA, I think they call it something, don't they? Which was sort of, he was saying it was sort of a union between all these, like, which were in the time in the 70s, I suppose, pretty much all government funded airlines. And they sort of monopolized the aviation industry, and it was price fixing, weren't it? And I think because he came in and wasn't part of this organization, he sort of wanted to take his own, to make his own path into it, didn't he? And he wanted to sort of sticking 2 fingers up at IATA, weren't it? And saying, like, you can fix your prices all you want, but I know I can do it for this much, sort of thing. And I think that's the road he wanted to go down, didn't he? And quite rightly so. And like Margaret Thatcher even said, he opened up transatlantic travel to the masses, didn't he?
Well, yeah. The courts actually blocked it for ages, and he found a wonderful little loophole where clubs and organisations could charter an aircraft, and it got so farcical. It would be like Darlington Chess Club would charter this plane, and he had to get these people to do sworn declarations that they're actually part of this chess club. And when the bigger airlines got wind of it, they were sort of stamping their feet and, like, getting people down there to interview these people to make sure they were legitimate for these aircraft to be going off for, like, Surrey Lawn Tennis Association or whatever, who chartered this plane for next to nothing. And he found this wonderful little loophole in the system at the time.
Yeah. I mean, looking at his, like, revolutionary ideas and things like that goes way back to just after World War II ended. So, I mean, I didn't know this until I did the research and stuff. But do you remember back in the day where you had, like, converted planes that had the big bulky fronts?
Yeah.
That used to transport, like, cars and things like that. Came from Freddie Laker. Because he founded a company called Aviation Traders, which basically converted old, like, warplanes into freighter planes, and had them do sort of like cargo runs with, like, cars and like pretty much anything. Like it's basically how that cargo operation started, sort of thing, and things like that. So he invented that side of things, or he was part of the revolutionary side of the thing, and it was sort of strange and very very unheard of at the time. And you see these planes and you think, well, you look at them like what on earth what on earth are they doing with something like that? But it actually became a very successful sort of venture that he went on, which then obviously allowed him to progress, and then obviously, as we knew, basically go into the airline industry with Laker Airways. So he's always had a taste of like aviation for a long time. It took him about 20 years to then form Laker Airways. I think he used something like, I think it's maybe two or three Bristol Britannias to basically launch the airline, and then it just went from there.
Well, part of his cargo work, like you said, he did massive amounts for the Cold War in Berlin when Germany essentially shut the city off. He ran 2,000 flights to Berlin to keep it supplied, and that was 10% of everything that went in, and that was all old World War II freighters that he bought up. And before that, he was buying scrap World War II planes and selling the salvageable parts on, and that. He was an astute businessman, but he did, like you say, he did a lot for the Cold War. He actually had a company called Air, which did sort of Dover to Calais channel crossings as a roll-on, roll-off flight rather than a ferry, before obviously ferries had arrived in that sense. Yeah, incredibly forward-thinking.
That was the next thing I was just about to mention, which is what you just said, which is rather than a ferry crossing, is literally a flight across by chucking your car in and going across that way. It was crazy. Everything that he'd done, if you imagine sort of now, if you hear what he did, like somebody bringing that in now and being like, right, I'm going to start doing this, you think you're bloody nuts, aren't you? He was such a I thought it's like a brain box, really, to kind of come up with all these like wacky ideas and things like that, and actually sort of make them work for a time as well. So, it was very crazy. He obviously, like I said, he must have loved his aviation to, help out with the airlift and things like that. So, I think it's a massive credit to him, and the impact that he's had on the industry, I think, will be felt for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, and when Gatwick opened in 1958, there he actually became the managing director of British United Airways, but he couldn't cope with it. He didn't like being a pen pusher for someone else. He wanted to run and be his own man. So he sort of sacked it off pretty quickly to get into becoming his own airline company or whatever. So it shows sort of the determination of the bloke that he didn't want to work for somebody else.
I think he was a true entrepreneur, weren't he? In every sense of the word, weren't he? He wasn't, like you say, he wasn't for working for anybody else, where he just wanted to. He wanted to be that person, didn't he? Right at the top, rather than a couple of steps below.
No, that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, with the amount of, we'll go into detail on it now, but the amount of like revolutionary things that he came up with, there's a huge list of them, which we'll go through shortly, where it was just, you look at it and you think, he did that? Like, he did that? It's like, it's crazy. So, for example, if we do go through them very quickly, he sort of the revolutionary idea of having an overseas base, where in August 1968, Laker Airways established their first overseas base in Berlin. Obviously, a place where Freddie Laker knew quite well from doing the airlift and stuff. And it was quite, we see it nowadays with Ryanair just basing their planes anywhere they want. But back then you wouldn't have seen that. So for him to do that was a little bit like, a little sort of shift in the pattern of how aviation was back in sort of the late 60s.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously SkyTrain was the big one, where he wanted aviation to be like going to a train station, and you'd go You show up on the day, you pay 59 quid, I think it was, which pretty much covered his cost plus a little bit of profit. And his first ticket office, he'd worked out that most people travel to Gatwick by train, so he actually set it up in London Victoria. And first few flights sold out, and people were actually sleeping out on the streets to pick up these £59 flights. And that was another loophole of how he managed to get a transatlantic license, because BA and Pan Am were pretty annoyed about it. And he said, well, this is how I'm unique. This is my business plan. These ones you got to book miles in advance, whereas me, you show up on the day of your flight and you get a ticket. And that's how he got his operating license, because he had his USP of just showing up and buying it like a train ticket.
It's the SkyTrain idea for him was like little, like no frills. Literally, you get to go as we saw in the commercials and stuff. Like, book 2 weeks, you get a really good deal for it. You don't have to pay through the roof through like the economy from any other airline to get to America, sort of thing. You could do it in a really cheap sort of a way of doing it. So, for example, he wanted to kind of link, as I say, link America and the UK, which for the early 70s, you're looking at like, for a one-way ticket, £32.50.
Yeah,
which is absolutely unheard of. Like now, it's just completely unheard of to book a one-way ticket to America for like the price of maybe not even half a week shopping sort of thing.
It was ridiculous. It was that low frills for you could have a meal on board, but you had to buy it when you were still on the ground, and they only loaded that one meal onto the aircraft. So if you had 100 people and 30 people wanted meals, they'd only put 30 meals on. There was no option of being able to buy when you're in the sky. And he had his press release day on the first SkyTrain, and he made all the press buy tickets like anyone else would have to. He didn't give anyone any freebies, and there were some real kind of leading aviation people from the industry, and he made everyone who got on that flight pay their ticket, whether they were famous or otherwise, which is incredible. Yeah. You've got to admire that.
Yeah, it is massively like, it varied from obviously £32.50 one way in the winter, and then in the summer you pay like £5 more, so it's like £37.50 in the summer to get across to America. And I believe the SkyTrain idea then obviously had Freddie buy 707s to be able to do this, which I think were ex-Qantas planes, if I'm correct. But as Transatlantic Allison says, I'll just change that back to what I had just then. The train idea is good on paper, but is never going to work operationally. Did it was it too much really, like to kind of have so much no frills that it was almost a case of no frills was no chance of being able to kind of make it viable to continue with?
I think in that sort of era of aviation, it was still kind of seen as like upper class, wasn't it? And it was the kind of preserve of the rich and that. And what he did was opened it to the masses. And I think probably a degree of sort of snobbery within the industry, and probably those sort of high flyers, they were never gonna take him under his wing. But as we know to this day, Ryanair, EasyJet, there's obviously other examples around the world, but they've carried it on. Like, you see some of these flights nowadays, they're giving it away, and if you don't put baggage in or buy a drink or whatever, but you're literally getting on the plane and costing them money. But they're kind of gambling on you buying other stuff to make the route profitable, aren't they?
Yeah, it was very interesting kind of to read through the SkyTrain idea, and again through everything that he did that was like completely revolutionary. And of course there was talking to the SkyTrain, he wanted to expand that from not just going from the UK to the US, but he also wanted to go from the UK to Australia, using the DC-10s that obviously then came into the fleet. But the CAA took a negative view of Laker's application for it, to think that maybe they were just sort of thinking it was just going with too much sort of thing, too much kind of like, you're kind of taking the mick a little bit by making it so cheap that they just turned around and just like they completely shut it down.
Yeah, and the thing is, when the license briefly got revoked and he was going through the courts and whatever, he actually became like the people's champion, didn't he? Everyone was backing him, and he had the same kind of love and enthusiasm this side of the pond as he did in America. Like, everyone was willing him to do well, and I know Margaret Thatcher at the time was sort of on his side, but obviously events with BA sort of dictated that took a little bit of a U-turn for him in the end, unfortunately.
Yeah, and like the ideas that he had to go from not just there, obviously it then got rejected and stuff, but he also wanted to kind of become a big player in sort of Asia as well. So wanting to plan routes to like Hong Kong and that, because he heard of rumors that British Caledonian were going to want to do Hong Kong as well. So he thought, well, I'll have some of that as well and offer it out for no frills sort of thing. And applied for the license to be able to do that alongside the likes of alongside the likes of British Caledonian and obviously Cathay Pacific doing the reverse sort of thing. So it was quite interesting to read up on that. And he wanted to do Gatwick to Los Angeles and then go on to like Honolulu and Tokyo and things like that. So he had all these ideas for this airline, but I think eventually it just kind of like caught up with him. And
because I see we had a comment earlier on about Laker and Prestwick, and I think that was, unfortunately, reading up, one of his sort of mistakes. And there was Tampa in Florida, which wasn't particularly big at the time. He wanted to go into there, and that never really worked out for him. And I think, unfortunately, whilst his business plan was great doing like the real popular flagship routes, it never quite had the same impact doing the slightly less popular routes, and it ended up being sort of part of his downfall, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was kind of the case. We'll get on to the downfall of Laker shortly. We'll kind of just want to go through again more of the revolutionary ideas that he implemented, which obviously now have become a big thing in aviation nowadays. So obviously the overseas base, which was part of the what we've just mentioned. In 1972, Laker Airways co-founded the Gatwick Handling Limited Group, which was a handling agent for obviously like ground crew and things like that. So they revolutionized that sort of thing. They owned 50% of it. Dan Air were the other ones to own the other half. Cost-saving measures that they had, obviously to reduce wear and tear and things like that, as we mentioned. The reduced thrust takeoff technique, which they used the BAC 111s as well to reduce the wear and tear. They also faster climbs after takeoff. So they would like what was it you, Steve, that you mentioned earlier, or maybe Ian mentioned earlier, where they tune into the jet aircraft.
Oh, Ian, yeah.
Yeah, and began a conversation with the other aircraft crew while continuing their climb. The aim was to maintain information about the other aircraft's altitude to encourage the aircraft's crew to climb to their upper cruising altitudes quickly as possible, so that the 111s could then attain their optimum height in the shortest time possible. So it's all fuel consumption and things like that, which were a bit of a big player in terms of what his ideas and his vision was for Laker Airways moving forward. Increasing the range by introducing weight-saving measures. Among the weight-saving measures Laker Airways used to make its aircraft fly longer without refueling was a baggage allowance limit of 18 kilograms, rather than the usual 20, as well as carrying fewer passengers than the aircraft could hold. The policy was, introduced on the 111s. So the company would allow this sort of thing to basically save weight on the aircraft, which would then obviously give off a better fuel consumption, which would therefore increase the range of the aircraft. So there's also just loads of different ideas that he had, and it was just completely crazy. But of course, the more controversial side of things, as we sort of discussed way back on a previous show, was of course the way that Laker disappeared from the skies. There was a lot of uproar because of what they were doing, and obviously a couple airlines didn't like it, as well as obviously the change in climate of the time, sort of late 70s, like recession and things like that, which ultimately then led to Laker's downfall. But it's more the airline sort of bullying sides, I think, which is what we focused on before. I think you had quite a bit to say on it, Ian, in regards to sort of like how Laker was then sort of ridiculed for what he was trying to do.
Well, I think, like you say, back in the 70s, I think Margaret Thatcher was on record saying that competition is a brilliant thing, and for Freddie Laker to allow transatlantic to the masses is a good thing. But in the next breath, she was trying to privatise British Airways as well, weren't she? At the same time, she didn't want all these government-owned businesses. We also, I mean, you probably won't remember it, Tom, but maybe Steve and I certainly do. Where Maggie Thatcher everything just wanted to be privatised. The gas, telephones, everything were privatised, and British Airways were one of these things. But because of what Freddie Laker were doing with these transatlantic flights, British Airways, they sort of nearly became bankrupt through it, and not just British Airways as well, but like Pan Am with the other one, weren't it? With the other big airline involved in the scandal sort of thing, and I think with all this price fixing and all this IATA intervention, what have been going on through the years, not just with probably British Airways and Pan Am, but with these other airlines as well. I think there was Sabina, Lufthansa. There were quite a few, weren't there, back in the time? And they'd sort of monopolise the market and charge these ridiculously high prices to get transatlantic. And as soon as they started having to sort of get onto the same page as what Freddie Laker were doing, they just couldn't make it. They just couldn't do it. And I think that was potentially could have been their downfall. And I know that at one point when Freddie Laker was going bust, I think it weren't Lord King, because he was on charge of BA at the time. It was somebody else. We're talking to Margaret Thatcher, and he'd actually said to her, because she was pretty much writing a check out for redundancies for British Airways for 50 to 52 million pound or whatever it were, but then she refrained on bailing Freddie Laker out for £5 million. And I think that was probably part of his downfall, weren't it? I think that was part of the beginning of the end for him.
I think Maggie kind of knew BA and that had been up to no good, and she was terrified about them being sued, and successfully, because it would have made BA impossible to get rid of out of the government's hands and that. And then you got BA and Pan Am holding the engine manufacturers tightly by the gentleman's region over this 5 million bailout, and they basically said, if you bail Laker, we'll stop being your customers, and it was worth obviously more than £5 million to them.
I think that we were British Caledonia who were the instigators behind that one.
Yeah. But as an industry, they were properly hated, and it went to the top, didn't it? Obviously, Maggie Thatcher over here and old Ronald Reagan. He was getting well involved. I know you looked it up a little bit, didn't you, Ian?
I did, yeah. Well, I think Ronald Reagan back at the time, weren't he? He was he was sort of trying to introduce the Star Wars program, weren't he, at the time, and he needed us on side because we were sort of standing shoulder to shoulder with USA and things like that. But I think it was something to do with the pricing for Pan Am or something. Oh no, hang on, was it? It was, there was a lawsuit, weren't there? And Ronald Reagan had to intervene, didn't he? Margaret Thatcher got Ronald Reagan to intervene into this lawsuit and to drop this lawsuit so that Margaret Thatcher would come on board with him with the Star Wars program, what he was trying to do at the time, which was some kind of laser guide thing in space or whatever we were doing. Yeah, but like you're saying, Steve, he got right to the top, and you know, when heads of state are involved in it, it stinks, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, and then yeah, unfortunately, the bank, the main lender got wind of the fact it was looking a bit troublesome for them, and they were demanding £5 million payment to prove that they were solvent. And unfortunately, despite sort of going to Japanese investors and all sorts, obviously they couldn't materialise it.
No, it's funny because part of the documentary I was watching, they were saying about this. It was a £5 million because the banks had called the debts in, haven't they? And it was a Midland bank back in the day, and they'd called this £5 million debt in, and they sort of extended his. They said like we need it by whatever date it was by 5 p.m. and he extended it to the following day, and he couldn't raise this money and all the rest of it. But then I think he's a media tycoon back from then, the guy called Tiny Rowlands, actually put the money up for this £5 million what he needed, but the banks actually refused to accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the way that, like I said, the way that they sort of were put out the skies was literally just a massive bullying technique. You know, like you said, you mentioned the likes of British Airways, British Caledonian, Pan Am, TWA, Lufthansa, Air France, Swiss Air, KLM, Scandinavian, Sabina, Alitalia, and French airline UTA. Were all conspired apparently by Freddie Laker to put his airline out of business because of predatory pricing. To which obviously they settled it out of court for $50 million, and BA obviously paid out a separate court price for £8 million for the like. So obviously, to me, that would say, you know, it was not a conspiracy. Obviously, there was something in it to say, look, we need to get this airline out of the skies because it's doing massive damage to the rest of us, sort of thing, by, you know, offering out cheap frills and things like that. And of course, as well as the recession that America and the UK were in at the time, everything just became non-viable and things like that. So it is a massive shame. It is a huge shame.
I think where a lot of these courts or whatever got angry, and I think the lawyers knew about it, was Lakers competitors were running at a loss on the same routes, and they were running aggressively at a loss to try and force them out of business. And I think that alone is why these companies probably got told by their lawyers, well, you're booked in this time. We can see that you've been really like unbelievably aggressive, and you're gonna have to come up with something, I'm afraid, because the courts are going to frown upon it quite hardly.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
I think. Oh, sorry, Tom. Go on.
I was just going to say, obviously they Laker collapsed because of the collapse of the bailout on February the 5th, 1982, with debts of £270 million, which has been described as the biggest corporate failure in British history. So. Yeah,
I think when I was reading and watching the documentaries, they were saying that part of this problem as well was because when you were mentioning the recessions back in early 80s and things like that, particularly we had a particularly harsh recession at that time, and they were saying that his income was in sterling, but his debts were all in dollars, and because of the strength of the pound becoming really weak against the dollar, that was part of his downfall as well. So his obviously profits were going and pretty much disappearing, and to collapse with a 279 million debt, he obviously was making a loss, weren't he? And,
well, that's it. No frills became, like I said, no chance of actually lasting because you know all these airlines, like your big players like Pan Am and stuff, who were also very key in the way that Laker went bankrupt because of the fact that they dropped their price massively. I think it was something like 66% they dropped it down to. Like they reduced their price for a transatlantic crossing by 66%, to compete with the fact that you could get a lot more on Pan Am than you could do on Laker. And obviously, again, it's almost like a resentment towards Laker because of, like I say, what they were doing, and then this conspiracy, which obviously was then settled in court on that. So, it is a huge, huge shame. But 1985 rolled in, and BA contributed an extra $35 million on top of its earlier out-of-court settlement with Freddie Laker.
Yeah.
To kind of, I suppose that's hard to settle the whole thing completely. The total amount contributed by everyone enabled Freddie Laker to pay off his outstanding debts of $69 million, which permitted BA to proceed with its own privatization and saved the other airlines from potential bankruptcy. So it had a huge change in aviation in regards to, other airlines like your British Airways, your KLM and stuff could also face bankruptcy as well.
Yeah, no, that's it. And obviously, it was acknowledged that he did a lot of good. He obviously ended up with a knighthood for services to aviation. So it didn't go unnoticed that what he did was good. But unfortunately, he just picked on the biggest bully in the playground. And unfortunately, he put up a decent fight, but he was never gonna win it when his mates joined in.
No, definitely not.
No, definitely not.
We'll leave that there. Just go on. No, go on.
Oh, I was going to say, I think it was. It's been a sort of a sign of the times as well, because even pretty much since that day, I think he's pretty much showed everyone that you can do this no frills, low cost airline. You can do what you do, like your Ryanair's and EasyJet and things like that. But when it comes to transatlantic, it just, I think somebody touched on it before about Norwegian were doing it as well, and they couldn't quite get it right. And I just don't think that doing a long haul no frill service is cost effective and beneficial and doesn't really work. So I think in a lot of ways, despite what did happen to Freddie Laker, and as much as we admire him for what he did and what he brought to the industry, I think it's been like a massive lesson learned for everybody as well, that what he actually did wasn't really a viable business model, doing long haul transatlantic flights. I mean, like your Southwest and your EasyJets and your Ryanair's and all the rest of them, they all stay short to medium. They never ever venture out of that market, do they? No. And there's a good reason why they don't do that. And like I've said before, there's clever people than us, work these kinds of things out. And I think looking back at Freddie Laker, I think he sort of dipped his toe into something what he shouldn't have done, to be quite honest. Maybe if he'd stayed short and medium haul, he'd still be around today.
Right enough.
Yeah, possibly. We'll drop it there shortly, because then we'll go on to sort of the lasting impression that they had on the industry, sort of going forward. But we'll go through a few of the comments that we've got coming in from here. So Jason Peacock was adding on to what he was saying earlier by saying there's a cabin trainer fuselage next to the Gatwick hangar, and he thinks it was part of a Hermes aircraft, which is, that's going way back. I think it's the Handley Page Hermes, I think it is. Someone will correct me. I'm sure I'm not clued up on the older sort of planes and things like that. Just going to go through here and see. Jack Rolls saying that the information is incredible this evening. So thank you for that. Going back to the freighter side of things, which we were talking about, the Carver is what
That's the one, yeah.
Transatlantic Allison.
I think I was looking at a picture of, Aer Lingus had one, didn't they?
Yeah.
The one with a massive
bulbous front.
Yeah, with the front what opens, yeah.
Horrible bloody things they are.
Unusual looking thing, aren't you? I know that.
That's it. Jason Peacock, very knowledgeable with Laker Airways by the looks of it, says he would charge for every item on board. Nothing was free, and it was totally acceptable on a trip to pay for each item, just like the low-cost model. No one minded at the fares. Because they were so cheap.
No, I think he's done his research. Sorry, Steve. Go on.
No, I was just going to say onto that on one of the videos I watched, people actually used to bring their own picnics on and that, which obviously these days you wouldn't dream of doing. But people used to have like a little family picnic out on it.
Yeah, he used to welcome it, didn't he? He used to welcome people bringing their own packed lunches on and things like that, didn't he? But like,
can you imagine doing that now with a lunchbox in hand? And
but I think we live in a different society now where people pay £9.99 to get to Corfu and a Ryanair and still moan about it, don't they?
That's it. Yeah.
You know, you can't win, can you?
No. Steve Hancock on Facebook says the Car Bear was a Freddie DC4 conversion back in the back from ATL days. That's correct. It was a converted DC4, I believe. Rob Brown plane spotting hitting one of the nails on the head, saying I think the modern day equivalent was Norwegian. They face the same problems as Laker. Long haul, no frills is difficult to master and get right, especially on transatlantic routes. Of course, Norwegian that we knew flew Gatwick to Buenos Aires and, of course, Gatwick to New York and things like that, and tried to do it at a reasonable. I think it was something like £130 I think. But even then, at that price, it still was not enough when you're running Dreamliners across the pond and things like that, and especially down to Buenos Aires and Argentina and that. So, yeah, very, very difficult to try and get it correct. I'm just wondering if anyone would like to see the commercials again, because I'm very tempted to play them again. For anybody that's sort of joining late and maybe sort of missed that at the beginning. Jane Harker says hello. So hello to you.
Again. Yeah. It was Handley Page on the Hermes.
Yeah.
Handley Page, it was.
It was Handley Page. I thought it was. Yeah, that's fine. Another new name, Evie Aviation. I believe she's part of the Speedbird team as well. So hello to you.
Good evening.
She says hi. Rob Brown, Planespotting. Nothing really changed in British airline industry. History almost repeated itself with Virgin and British Airways. Dirty Tricks campaign. Of course, we all know about the Virgin side of things. Obviously, that very nearly happened during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's just, aggression, isn't it?
Yes. Tian Hartley says, great video.
All right.
With, I think that's a chick, and my eyesight can't see that. Is that a hand?
It's an oven glove, I think. I don't know.
An oven glove.
I don't know what it is.
She found a new emoji on her phone.
Yeah, that's Easter ruined.
Yeah.
And Jim Gemmell with a little bit of information saying that Laker was a UK launch customer for the Airbus A300.
Nice.
I think they'd ordered 5, hadn't they? And they only received 2, didn't they, in the end?
They did. Yeah. Weren't around long. Weren't around long at all. So let's talk about the lasting impression that they had on the airline industry, despite, of course, the backlash from many multiple big airlines. So obviously buying cheap tickets and cheap travel, of course, was adopted by many airlines. Of course, if we can think of many airlines off the top of our heads, it would be the likes of EasyJet, Ryanair, Southwest Airlines, I think, adopt sort of a similar sort of thing. Obviously, don't go across the pond or anything like that.
Spirit, it's same, aren't they? But I think they're part of Southwest. I'm not sure.
Spirit. Yeah, Spirit being another one as well. A lot of Americans will tell you that they don't like Spirit.
Is it Frontier and Spirit who were going to merge? It was, weren't it?
I believe so.
Yeah. I just got that
about JetBlue interfering, I think, or something.
I don't know.
I think I've read rumours that JetBlue wanted to buy one of them as well. I think it might have been Frontier, but whether that's happening or not, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, the likes of like Southwest, your Ryanair's, your EasyJets, and things like that, all aspired from the model that Freddie Laker obviously came up with. And of course, as we mentioned at the very beginning, and I think Steve mentioned it, of course, it was a massive inspiration for one Richard Branson, who then decided to start up Virgin, and it was a massive, massive sort of part of. Just trying to go through the notes here that I've written down. Because they set about deciding their long-term strategy. Richard Branson and Freddie Laker sort of got in touch about it, and Virgin are now who they are. So without Laker, you probably wouldn't have a Virgin Atlantic sort of thing. So just a lot for us to be thankful for when it comes to Laker Airways, and of course Sir Freddie Laker as well.
Yeah, all these obviously low cost carriers and that, and like you say, Virgin Atlantic. It's a legacy of the man that won't ever die out. Like, I can't see Ryanair, EasyJet changing their policies of nothing comes free once you're on, sort of thing, and low fares pay for everything else. Like, even where you want to sit down in your plane costs you money on your booking and that. And I know Freddie didn't do that as such, but he obviously adopted the sort of nothing comes free. We'll get you there, and that's all we'll do kind of thing. But yeah, it certainly will live on forever. What he sort of implemented.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
I think he inspired a lot of people. I think he inspired the likes of was his name Stavros, the EasyJet guy, and people like that to actually have the balls, if you will, to go into something like an airline industry, which is, I can imagine, it's no like easy thing to do. But to see that somebody like Freddie Laker can do it and succeed, and it obviously got shafted and back out of it, sort of thing. But I suppose it gave a lot of people that inspiration and gave them courage to attempt it as well, and quite rightly so, and successfully as well, what we've seen with likes of EasyJet and your Ryanair's.
And do you know what the interesting thing is as well? Is that obviously with Laker having to then pull out of doing the transatlantic side of things or going bankrupt because of it, that almost any attempt to replicate what Laker did has resulted in the airlines trying it, withdrawing or going bankrupt, i.e. Norwegian and whoever else has tried it and failed. So it's obviously a model that cannot be done unless you are literally super strict and you've got the most efficient aircraft possible. But so far that is not, still not possible to do that.
No.
Yeah, absolutely unreal.
So whether that will be done or not over time, we shall see.
I think the cost of fuel has pretty much kicked anything like that in the head now, to be quite honest, hasn't it? You're never going to get a budget seat across the pond now, are you?
Yeah. Laker did have a brief foray into doing stuff in the Caribbean and that. But unfortunately, I think by the time he got there, everyone else had. So he was in a market that already existed, and he couldn't sort of ease his way in with his business plan because it already existed. So yeah, it was a bit short-lived, that, unfortunately, for him down there.
Yeah, that's it. And yeah, I mean, you can't forget, of course, JetBlue running low-cost A321 flights across the channel, across the pond. Yeah, across the channel. No, across the pond at the moment. So I believe they're doing well with that as well. So maybe JetBlue could be the ones to break that duck when it comes to that. And she's also pointed out a very good a nice little fact as well that Richard Branson named one of the first 747-200 of the
that's decent
Spirit
touch.
of Freddie.
Yeah, nice that.
Which is wonderful. And yeah, like you said, he went into multiple different ways of doing. We're trying to get the airline up. He tried it in the US, tried it in the Bahamas, but like you said, Steve, the model was already there and airlines were already taking it. So there was no room for more revolutionary. No more revolutionary ideas because they were already taken by all these different airlines that were then at the time taking over from what he'd created. So it's almost like, going back sort of thing. You don't do it. Once you've left it, you don't go back to it sort of thing. It never works the same the next time you do it. So yeah, it obviously didn't work out for them. There was a UK division again in 2013, I believe. There was no official airline. There was supposed to be an official airline. But then the company was dissolved in September 2014. So Laker basically doesn't exist on any grounds now.
No. Maybe if he'd created his business before the industry was deregulated, in a sense, because it was all pretty much all these big airlines were all government funded, weren't they? Government run businesses. Maybe after it was all deregulated and he tried his business, then maybe it could have been a little bit more successful. Who knows? He was dipping his toe into an unregulated market, what were pretty much governed by governments, weren't it?
Yeah,
pretty much.
They're all national carriers, weren't they? Near enough.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Maybe one of you two who's got the knowledge on this one might be able to answer this question. From David Plunkett asking, didn't the choice of the troubled DC-10 and the Laker fleet have a part to play in his failure? Anyone want to answer that?
I don't know, because he had his DC plans, didn't he? And then he sort of dipped his toe into the Airbus market, didn't he? And he only ended up with two of these Airbuses. But I think after what Steve was saying before about when these airlines started having a go, didn't they, at McDonnell Douglas, didn't they? Because they were going to bail him out, weren't they? And I think McDonnell Douglas didn't want to bail him out because in the long run, McDonnell Douglas would have lost a lot more business than just what Freddie Laker had. And I think the reason why he didn't bail, I've lost where I'm at. Yeah, the reason why they didn't bail Laker out was just because they didn't want to lose any other business. So it was either us or them, weren't it, sort of thing. So they decided, so right, cheers, Freddie, but no thanks, Freddie, anymore, and we'll stick with the other carriers what we work with. And I think that was part of the downfall for Freddie Laker, weren't it? Because he sort of lost the backing of of the aircraft manufacturer, I suppose.
I think you could argue his most successful years were when he had the DC-10, so it'd be difficult to say that was part of his downfall.
Yeah, it is. I think obviously the contract and stuff, and obviously the asking of the bailing out as well, obviously, which I think was probably the big part in the whole thing of obviously the link between Laker and the DC-10. But I think it provided Laker with a big opportunity to, do these or attempt to do the market of low cost, no frills across the board sort of thing, across the pond and things like that. I'm not very well, so I'm getting my words mixed up at the moment. But so it's interesting. It is very interesting. But
I think sorry, I was just going to say it just was this massive umbrella of all these huge government-funded airlines tightening the thumb screws on suppliers and tightening the thumb screws on engine manufacturers, on aircraft manufacturers, and things like that, which pretty much it didn't lead to his downfall. But I say it certainly played a part in it. I would definitely say.
Yeah, it's just an incredibly hostile market around him. Absolutely. That was the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it was like we said, the government were dead scared of not being able to get British Airways off their hands.
That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to offload British Airways, didn't they?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, definitely. So, show of maybe thumbs ups in the comments or something like that if you want to have a look at the commercials again that we played at the beginning of the show. If you want another trip down memory lane, nostalgia road, whatever you want to call it, throwback terrace, just literally throwing it out there. Thumbs up, or just let us know if you do want to see those again, and I'll play them one more time before we go. Already coming in. So I think we'll end up playing it anyway. But
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it's been quite interesting to see sort of people's memories of Laker. Obviously, it's far too older for me to sort of know. I know of them. I know obviously Freddie Laker and everything that he was doing, but obviously not around at the time that they were there. But obviously, the lasting sort of thing that we can say is literally without Laker, there'd be no, you wouldn't be able to go on an EasyJet plane to Scotland, to France, to anywhere in the world, sort of thing, without the fact that Freddie Laker tried to do it first.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you mentioned to people like, "Oh, we're doing a show on Laker this week," and not a single person goes, "Oh, he was terrible." Like everyone of that era gets a bit kind of dewy-eyed and goes, "Oh yeah, Laker, he was a fantastic bloke," and that. So that's sort of quite telling that even all these years on, 40, 50 years on, everyone still gets a bit dewy-eyed over him and talks about what a legend the bloke was.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you could, judging by the adverts and any documentaries that you've seen and that, you could look at like the way that he is and you think, what a nice bloke he is, or what a nice bloke he must have been, and like a type of bloke that comes sit with you, sort of thing. And something that I'm probably going to look up is something that Transatlantic Alison put up before. I'm just going to see if I can find it. She mentioned about a book there we go. So Simon Calder wrote a book, No Frills, and does a great write-up on Laker. So definitely something that I'm going to be checking out, I think, just to get another sort of idea really as to the idea behind Laker and go from there. So I think people People are putting thumbs up. And I think we should probably play the commercials one more time, I think.
Yep, lovely.
For a nice trip down memory lane, throwback terrace, whatever you want to do. Still need names for the spinny wheel of destiny. I'm going to just put that up there. That's the word that's the name I'm coming up with at the moment. I have a spinny wheel of destiny. I'm going to need a name for it. We're going to use it for giveaways and potential show topics as well. So if you can come up with a name for that as well, we'll go from there. Let's go with the commercials. And 3, 2, 1. Here's the first one. I know I've just seen it. I've just seen the comment. Just shut up and get on with it. So that's what I'm doing.
I'm Freddie Laker. I own Laker Airways, and I'm dedicated to low-cost air travel. In 1976, over 1 million passengers flew Laker, so if you're planning a visit across the Atlantic, believe me, we know what we're talking about. With Laker, you can fly round trip to the USA or Canada in one of our wide-body DC-10s for less than half the price of a normal economy ticket. And you don't have to join a club. Just book well in advance and plan to stay for at least 2 weeks. But don't call me. See your travel agent for full details. Look, I've got to give you a better deal. I've got my name on every plane.
I love watching old.
Yeah, I was going to say what tickles me about that advert, and I don't want to sound sexist anywhere or anything like that. But when he's actually stood at the top of the stairs and he says, flying one of our DC-10s, and he gives it that, it looks like he's pointing to that air stewardess who stood behind him. The way he says it and the way he starts giving it that way, he's stood behind him.
Yeah, no frills. But yeah, I mean, lots of people saying, yeah, it's cheesy. Things like that. It's it is. Was it Sign of the Times or something? We'll go.
That's
with.
how it was back
then.
Yeah,
very much, wasn't it?
I mean, nowadays they get all these fancy actors and things like that to do this kind of thing, don't they? But back then it was a bloke stood upstairs, weren't it, with a camera on his shoulder, and that's how it was, weren't it?
Betamax tape or whatever it used to be in the day.
Probably was, yeah. Probably wasn't. They were probably two of them big wheels, weren't it, on top?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, and for the last one, we'll have a little bit of a sing song. We are watching ourselves in the green room doing this, so feel free to join in with a good old arm swing as we play the last one.
Welcome to Laker.
Consider yourself at home.
Consider yourself one of the family.
Consider yourself our mate. We don't mean to make no fuss, but after some consideration we can stay. Consider yourself one of us.
I'm Freddie Laker, and flying with me is fun, and the fun begins with my low prices.
I caught that then, Steve.
Careful.
I was just
careful. Yeah.
And it tickles me. I'll say it then. I've said it to you before, Tom, about the first advert where he sounds quite like a posh businessman, and the second one he sounds like Lord Sir Alan Sugar.
Yeah, just Freddie down the market plugging his airline.
Yeah. Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, we're going to leave it there, and we're going to start to wrap the show up as we normally do with shout outs and everything else. But first, we also want to continue to plug for Ken, of course, and appreciate his hard work that he's put into it. The A380 data file book, which is now available on the Visions International website, which you can find in the description below. And you can also find it in many different places. I believe the shop in Manchester, the shop, the
aviation shop,
I believe it's in there.
In Manchester, yeah.
I believe it's in there, and many retailers have got it as well. Ken will probably mention it to me, probably in the next sort of 10 seconds as to where they are on Facebook, and I'll probably end up saying where they are. But he's put a lot of hard work into it. He's managed to get all the photos of every single A380 produced and put it into a really, really nice information book. Steve, have you got yours yet?
I'll be honest, I haven't, but I will definitely be getting it. I'm going to yeah, give it to myself as a early Christmas present.
Yeah, why not? You're only like what 8 months, 8 months early, but why not?
Easter present. Yeah, no, I will definitely be getting it. My love for the 380 doesn't go unnoticed, I'm sure.
There you go. Yeah, it's fantastic. So it's available. You just put it in there. The RVP shop and the ARD at London Heathrow. Do go find it. You've upset him now, Steve.
Keep an eye out. I'll get it after the show, and you can. I'll send you a screenshot of the receipt to prove I've done it.
Wonderful, fantastic. But do consider getting it. Ken's put a lot. Ken and Charles have both put like a lot of hard work into it, and there are other retailers, of course there is, but it's everywhere. You can buy it on the website as well. But they put a lot of hard work into it, and to show them their support and appreciation and stuff, do consider getting it. It's it'll be quite a good read. Fantastic. Right, so let's just very quickly, while we've still got people here, mention what we're doing next week. I think we were doing something different, and then we figured we'll completely change it all up. So next week we do indeed have Ken and Charles joining us for what I think is going to be quite an interesting evening of funny stories, I believe, from the world of aviation. And Charles Kennedy is quite an interesting man himself, from what we've heard. So should be a very interesting show next week, and very much look forward to getting both of them on again. And of course, Ken will be making his second appearance on the show.
Oh, yeah. Just to confirm, that's next Sunday, isn't it?
Have I put Wednesday?
You have.
Next Sunday. Yeah.
Shall I do that again?
I think next Sunday's show is going to be an interrogation into why Steve hasn't bought this book yet.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. You've got till basically next. Yeah, there was no mistake. It's definitely next Sunday. That's when we're doing it. But yeah, so Ken and Charles will join us for some good fun, I'm sure. But it should be a lot of fun. So Jim Gemmell going, wonder how many of Ken's stories will start with, I had a few drinks.
All the best stories do.
All the best stories all start with, I had a few drinks. Okay. But yeah, so fantastic. So we're looking forward to that. Should be good fun. There you go. Countdown is on.
If we all have a few, it'll be like being sat around the table in pub, won't it?
Yeah.
Listening to Ken.
Like a mafia. Just a really
I'd like a signed edition, please, with this amount of pressure on me. Yeah. 001 edition, if you wouldn't mind.
Fantastic. Wonderful. So, next week we're joined by Ken and Charles. But thank you very much to everybody that's watched this evening. I know being Easter Sunday, people have had plans and everything else. So hopefully, a lot more people will probably watch next week. But we're going to do some shout outs now. So if anybody's got any shout outs that they want to have put onto the screen, it could be for anybody, not to blow our own trumpets or whatever, but it could be for us, it could be for family, it could be for friends, or you could literally just want to wish people happy Easter. Do put them onto the chat and we'll get them onto the screen as we do our shout outs. And we will start with you, Ian.
Oh, that's put me on the spot. Just usual from me. I'm going to shout out to everyone who's been in chat tonight, everyone who's been watching it background, all the new names, what have appeared and things like that. A massive shout out to you, Tom, and to you as well, Stephen. Happy Easter to everyone, and obviously the biggest shout out to me good self. So yeah, thanks, Ian.
Short and sweet. That's why we go to you first.
Yep.
Right, Steve, over to you.
And I'd also like to shout.
Oh, hang
sorry.
on, not
no,
you,
I'm just
Steve.
kidding.
Right, let's go. Actually, I'll tell you what. Just before we do, it was indeed Sarah's birthday on Thursday, just gone. So very happy belated birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday. Hope you had a good day.
Birthday, Sarah.
Yeah. Hope it was all right. Hope Ken spoiled you. But yes, let's go. Steve, over to you as I show some of the shout outs that we've got on the screen.
Yeah, just sort of reiterating what Ian said. A shout out to everyone in the chat there, particularly Jack Rolls, he said earlier on about how good my A340 photo was, and I'm not even going to be humble about it. He's spawn. It was absolutely amazing. Yeah,
Nice.
Tom and Ian, as always. I've seen our football result. I'm not going to spoil it for you, Ian, unless you've already
I forgot
seen
to
it.
mention it. No, I've seen it. I've forgot to mention it.
Yeah.
What were it?
I can't remember, mate. It's only
Oh,
don't
right,
even matter
okay.
to me. More important things to worry about.
Don't think he's not ready to talk about it yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm just excited that my internet seems to have worked for the entire show. I know my computer turned itself off earlier on, but the fact we've made it through so far.
Oh, he's gone. Not really.
Yeah, absolute bonus. And as Visions International is always for letting us piggyback his channel. We really, really do appreciate you letting us do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, massive thank you. Massive thank you for that one. Just going to go through. Vision saying, can you say hello to Mr. Rolls for me?
All right, sausage.
Brilliant.
How did he get on tonight?
Good question.
That's right. I'll have a look. I'll have a look while you're doing your shout outs.
Yeah. Tian Hartley says, excited for the next podcast coming up. I've been on 100% of the time today, defo.
There you go.
Tell you now, she hasn't.
Wonderful. Right, I'll go on to shout outs myself. Firstly, big thank you to both you and Steve, Ian, for being part of the show. On to 57 episodes already. It's crazy. With lots more to come, and obviously we're gaining a little bit of popularity now as well. I went to, and I've got to give a shout out here. I went to Velocity flight training yesterday for a flight simming experience on a 737-800, and absolutely loved it. It was absolutely fantastic. And I want to give a big shout out to Duncan, who runs the place, for basically being a fantastic host and for making the experience very enjoyable. I think me and him are like best buds now. So, but he does watch the podcast, so I'm hoping he's watching this evening. If he's not and he catches up on it, that's fair enough. But a big shout out to you for the experience yesterday on the 737 sim. We flew into Kai Tak and managed to nail it on both times. So in clear weather and in stormy weather, so managed to nail it as well. So if Ryanair are watching, I am ready and available to fly. I can slam a plane; it's absolutely fine. But no, it was good fun. So yeah, big shout out to Duncan for that. And of course, if you haven't been to Velocity flight training in Gloucestershire, I know for some people it's a long way away, but it's very much worth it. Do check them out, and if it's something that you enjoy, do go and give them a lot of support. Thank you to everybody that was watching this evening as well. I'm just going to run through some names. Not everybody, but I am going to run through some names. So, Donna O'Brien, Sarah Pass, Gail Leary, Jack Rolls, Mr. APU, of course, Rob Brown, Plane Spotting, who I know has left, Ken Carr, Shay Pell, Jim Gemmell. There's names here that I'm literally just going through all the names here. Speedbird TV, of course, Jace, who is a moderator for Speedbird TV as well. I miss his hello, so we're not going to miss that out now. Jason Peacock with some wonderful information. Transatlantic Alison, of course, for being ever so wonderful when watching us. And like I said, there's loads of names. Simon Chisnell, Paul Hussey. The list goes on. So, yeah, and everyone else, if I've missed your names and stuff, Aviation in Action, of course, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joining us as well. So good to see your names popping up. Hopefully it won't be the first and last time. But yeah, so big thank you to everybody watching, everyone that's supported the podcast over the last year
12
or so.
months.
Yeah, look, 12 months now. Jeez. Remember the first time of starting this, it was crazy. Like nerves and everything. And now it's just like, just completely taken off. But yeah, so big thank you to everybody. Who else is there? Frontline workers, of course, as we know.
Me.
Working hard, of course, throughout the entirety of this pandemic. And, we're thinking of you and support is there. And I think that's pretty much about it, apart from looking forward to next week's show, which is definitely on a Sunday. It's still weird to get used to saying that again. But
Yeah.
And Jack's team drew 1-1, so I'm now more points clear. So
They made a draw, didn't he, Jack?
and he's a West Ham fan, so there you go. No, so that's fine. So we are going to wrap the show up. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We're going to say our goodbyes. And just like the intro, which is brand new with music, the outro has pretty much got the same. So, Steve, no, I'll tell you what, we'll save you to the end. So, Ian, if you'd like to say your goodbyes to people still watching.
Yeah. Just thanks again, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Thanks again for all them fantastic comments. Thanks again to you, Steve, and to you, Tom. Point it wrong way around. See you all again next week, next Sunday.
Fantastic. Goodbye to you. Also, I'm going to just say as well, thank you to Ken as well for the fact that we are streaming on his channels as well and piggybacking as we've said. Massively appreciative. All right, Steve, in your typical manner with your signature goodbye, if you'd like to do that now.
Yeah, look, just again, like, thank you everyone who's been in and that, and it's been 3 weeks or so I'm out of practice, so we'll take a deep breath.
Here we go.
All right, cheerio, my lovelies. Until next time, stay safe, stay sexy, and don't eat too many Easter eggs unless you're sharing them with me. All right, cheerio now.
Fantastic. Wonderful stuff. And of course, from me, all that's left to say, I'll just quickly run through before we do go. You can follow us if you don't want to look on the descriptions. You can follow us on Twitter. We also have a Facebook page where you can follow us on there. If you want to see some photos that I put up on the channel, you can follow the Instagram. Also, you can follow Steve on Instagram if you want to see his pictures. And you can follow Ian as well. Wonderful. All that's left for me to say is thank you so much for watching. We'll see you Sunday night next week, which I believe is the 24th. 24th at 7:30 p.m. for some more fun and games where we're joined with Ken, which should be a lot of fun. Ken and Charles should be good. For now, have a fantastic week. Enjoy the rest of the bank holiday, and we'll see you next Sunday, 7:30 p.m. for some more fun and games. Take care, everybody, and see you later. Bye.